Alright guys, well here I have a 45 RFE out of a Dodge 1500 pickup truck. We're going to do a quick tear down to see what we're going to be able to find in here. The first thing we want to do, like always, we want to remove all the external components. We have the input speed sensor here, and we have the output speed sensor. And on the opposite end, we have the line pressure sensor or pressure transducer. So we're going to go ahead and remove these three items, and then we remove our extension housing and we go to the internal of the barrel of the case. It's an 8mm bolt, and it should fairly easily come out. And this is what the transducer looks like, or line pressure sensor. Now our output speed sensor and input speed sensor. It should come out fairly easily. Sometimes they get stuck. And on this model, they are both the same. On the smaller units, like the 42 RLEs, the input is different than the output. On this unit, they're both the same. Okay, now on the extension housing, you have two bolts that have studs on them. And on some models, these two bolts are used for the bracket on the exhaust, and it looks like this were not used on this particular vehicle. But you just want to mark them where you're going to remove them from, and install them in the same position they were. Okay, you can smack it with the hammer, or here in this location there is an indentation where you can get your screwdriver in and crack it open. It has one on each side. It's not visible because of the silicone. You could do that, but I just prefer just to tap the rear and pull on it at the same time, and it should come off. Now on most of the Chrysler transmissions, they use silicone. They don't use a gasket, and that is considered normal. And on the RFE models as well, they use silicone on the pan gasket as well. And if you find a gasket, like a cord gasket or any other type of fabric gasket, it's just because somebody already serviced the transmission. But normally they come without a gasket. They use silicone. Okay, we want to remove this parking gear here because it needs to be off once we get the final the rear planet assembly. I just get two magnets here and just pull it away. We get that out of the way. Now here in the front, where the pump is at, there are no bolts. I mean, all you see, it's a cover that looks like a hubcap. It has two snap rings. So we remove this large snap ring first, and then we remove the inner snap ring. This one here, we're going to use some snap ring pliers. It'll be a little difficult to get out because it's under pressure. There's a seal there that actually it keeps it pressured. We'll get it out. Let's get the other tip. And this is the other snap ring. And we're going to push this cover from the inside. Alright, let's flip this transmission over. Fluid looks fairly clean. as you see here, there's our pan gasket. It's been serviced before. And the pan looks fairly clean as well. If you look at the magnet, I mean, it looks fairly clean. The complaint of this unit is it stops shifting. We have two filters. We have the main pump suction filter, and then we have a cooler return filter. And we want to replace both filters when we rebuild or service one of these units. To remove this filter, there's a Torx 25 bolt holding it. Get that out of the way. And just so you won't lose that bolt, just to kind of put it back where you take it off from, so you won't lose it. Now let's go ahead and remove our valve body, and we're going to remove the 8mm bolts. That's 6 bolts, and it should come right off. Okay, so there we have our valve body. This is our solenoid pack. All the solenoids are integrated into one pack, so if one of the solenoids fails, you have to replace the whole pack. It's not serviceable separately. All the solenoids are internal. You see here what it looks like to be a governor pressure solenoid, like from a 46 REs or 47s, and it looks just like it. When you take it off, it looks just like it. It's just a pressure control solenoid on this unit. Another thing that I want to point out to you guys is that these bolts, they back out sometimes, and then once these bolts fall off into the pan, it will bend out, and some of the accumulators will be pushed out, and you would have some upshift concerns or missing gears. Let's go ahead and take the valve body out of the way. Now from here, we're going to push that cover. Just kind of tap on it with a screwdriver, and it comes right off. Alright, well, let's flip this transmission over this way so you can look at the pump. This is the pump assembly, and we're going to remove these 10mm bolts. Let's change sockets here. Six 10mm bolts, and you just pull on it. And here's our pump assembly. Right now we're going to get everything out of the barrel of the case, and then we're going to disassemble part by part so we can get the case out of the way. So first comes out our pump, and then our input drum. And if you look at this drum, if you're familiar with 604s and 606 or 41Ts and 42 LEs, this is what it looks like. Let's get this thing out of the way. We're going to disassemble that later. Now here in the center you see a big snap ring, and whenever you go back putting the snap ring back in, just make sure that it's out of the way. Here is protruding a little bit inward, but if this snap ring is all the way in the way here, the valve body won't sit correctly, and you're going to have leakage here in these two holes. Alright, well, let's take this snap ring off. And I use this long screwdriver, and on the tip I have a little notch cut out. That's to go behind the snap ring. And kind of hold it and pull. The screwdrivers like this, you can buy them anywhere. So there we have our snap ring already removed. Now we're going to go ahead and take this assembly out. Kind of went cocked sideways a little bit. Okay, so this would be considered our sort of like a center support, but it actually houses the second clutch piston and the fourth clutch frictions in here. So this is actually a double drum for second and for fourth. Then we have our hub here that slides into that. We have one planet coming out here, and always make sure that you pay attention where these bearings go and the direction that they lay on the inside of their position. This one goes inside that planet here. Now we have the intermediate frictions, intermediate clutches, you want to call them that, or our second clutch. Now this snap ring here, is for the for this housing to sit on. And then we have our second frictions here. They look in very good shape. Let's get this out of the way. Now we get this rear plate. Set that to the side, and now we have our low reverse drum down there, and it's also held by a snap ring. I'm gonna get this thin screwdriver in there to get behind the snap ring, and we do the same thing. We open it up, get behind it, and then we pull. Okay, get the tip out. There we go. Now this snap ring here, it's beveled. There's a flat side to it, and then it has it's tapered down on the other side. And the tapered side goes towards you, the flat side goes towards the drum. This drum here, once you take the snap ring off, it should just slide out. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of trouble getting it out because it gets cocked sideways, but it comes out. Alright, so here we have our empty case. All that's in here is just that filter, and it should come right off. There we go. Looks like a motor oil filter, but this is the cooler return filter. So the fluid gets filtered. Once it circulates through the cooler, it comes back and it returns here, and before it goes back into the transmission, it's already filtered out. Okay, let's drain this thing a little bit, get this case out of the way, and disassemble the internal components. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and disassemble our drums. And on the low reverse drum, we have the low reverse sprag assembly, and it has a snap ring here that we need to remove the sprag assembly, and then we take our clutches off. So I'm going to use my snap ring pliers and a little pick to get behind the snap ring and kind of lift it up. Lift it up a little bit so that you can get the snap ring out. And then we lift the sprag assembly. There we go. So I'm holding the inner race, and it's turning clockwise and locks counterclockwise by holding the inner race in this position. See, this is the back of the sprag, and this is the front of the sprag. Put this out of the way over here, and now we remove our frictions, low reverse frictions. Take the snap ring off. And these frictions, they are high energy frictions. They look this color, but they're not burned up. That's the way they look. They're kind of a dark greenish color. And if you see here, the pressure plate is nice and shiny, and this is also nice and shiny as well. If this clutch were to be burned, this would have heat spots on it, or it would be completely black as well. Okay, so we got the low reverse frictions, and then we have a molded piston. Now on this model, I'm not sure exactly what year it is. I think it's like an 06 or 07 model, Ram 1500 pickup truck. It has molded clutch pistons. Okay, this is our rear planetary assembly. Now here we have the second applied clutch piston. It's also a molded piston. And then we have a fourth clutch frictions in here. Let's go ahead and take them out and see what they look like. Remove our snap ring. They're in good shape. See, this is a different type of material on this friction. It's brown. That's the way it is, and it's not burnt. Now the brown frictions like this, you can identify it quicker to see if they are burned up or not. Because when they burn, they turn dark color or black. Go ahead and take this out of the way. And now our input drum. It houses our forward frictions, our overdrive frictions, or our underdrive, overdrive, and reverse input. So to make a reverse reaction, you need two applied elements, which is the reverse input frictions and the low reverse frictions that come in this drum here. Okay, now let's remove our first snap ring. Then we take this pressure plate off. Kind of pry it out of the groove there. Okay, we have our first pressure plate, and this is a high energy friction as well. As you see, that is kind of dark grayish, greenish in color. We have two frictions here for the reverse. So here's a steel in between, and then we have another friction for a reverse input. I'm sorry. Here we have our hub bearing. See this bearing? This is the way it lays flat there. Okay, now we take another snap ring off that is right here. Here's a second snap ring. Lay it flat there. And then this pressure plate. Kind of pay attention how this apply plate here goes, because on some models you will see that the thickness on one side is different than the other. So if you want to, you can just put an X on it and mark it, and you know that that goes towards the reverse input frictions, and just lay it flat there. Now we take our overdrive clutch hub here. And remove our overdrive frictions. And if you see here, we're already starting to see a problem here. It's nice and brown here. You can kind of see a little bit heat marks on it, but if you flip it on the opposite direction, you have a black line all the way around. Now we look at the steels, and the steels don't have heat marks. Well, there's one heat mark right here. I don't know if you can tell right there. But these frictions need to be replaced. And this is a very common problem here. Actually, the overdrive frictions, they always will come out like that. See, it's burned up on the inner, and then the outer still looks alright. It is a very common issue. I mean, that's the clutch pack that gets applied the most. Also inspect your splines. Make sure you don't have any stripped up splines. As we see here, our splines are in good shape. And here we have two sets of splines where it actually splines into the one sun gear and further down on the planet. Set those together there. Now we have another snap ring in here. Now this snap ring here, it's a waved snap ring. And I don't know if you can see it on the camera there, but it's kind of waved. It's a waved snap ring. It's kind of like a cushion snap ring. I mean, I don't know if you can pick that up on camera. The wave snap ring goes in first. And then you have the other snap ring, the flat snap ring, goes on top of the on that apply plate that we put an X, that we mark it an X on it. Now we get this another snap ring off, and this is a tapered snap ring. Now I'm going to use my hammer here to get kind of behind, because it kind of goes in fairly deep on the groove. Now I'm looking for the opening. Okay, so here's the opening here. I'm going to try first with my pick, but no, I got to get behind it. I'm going to just tap it with my hammer to see if I can get behind it. If I can get behind it, I'll lift up on it. Let's try our pick again. Okay, I'm lifted up a little bit. Okay, I'm underneath the snap ring now. Alright. It's a fairly hard snap ring. Now you will see sometimes that this snap ring will be in pieces, and it's flat on one side just like the one that came out of the low reverse, and it's tapered on the opposite end. So it's kind of tapered down on this end and flat on that end. And the flat part goes towards the pressure plate there. Now we take this plate off, and this one here has the ID groove. And it's kind of hard to put this thing backwards. As you see here, it's thicker on this side and it's kind of flat on the opposite end, and I can already see some heat marks here on the underdrive frictions. Now let's take this clutch off, and you can see it was slipping, taking off from a stop, slipping in forward. And this snap ring here is easier to remove. It's not as stiff as the other one, and this one has this cutouts at the end that you can actually get your pick or screwdriver and kind of lift it up. Okay, so here we have our underdrive frictions. They are pretty burnt up. This used to be brown. You can still see a little bit of brown inside the grooves, but there we have it. Forward, slipping in forward gear, taking off from a stop. So here's all of our frictions. Now we're going to go ahead and disassemble this pump here. I'm going to go ahead and clear this up. We're going to disassemble the pump, and we're going to disassemble the valve body next. Okay, so here's our pump. We're going to remove this Torx 30 bolts to remove our stator from the pump. Get our stator out, flip our pump over, and get a, those were Torx 30, and these are Torx 25. We want to remove all of these bolts and inspect our pump gears. There's a spring that likes to break. I'm going to go over that in a minute here. Let's just take this cover off. Take all these T25 bolts, remove them from the pump. Get them out of the way. And just use a screwdriver here and separate both halves. It has 2 guide pins, which they're not a big deal. So here we have our pump wear plate, and we have 3 gears in our pump. Remove 2 small T25 bolts. Now when you go back assembling this pump, don't forget these 2 bolts, because if you forget these 2 bolts, your vehicle will not move. Actually the pressure will escape from the bolt holes where this plate is actually supported. Okay, so we get our wear plate and we put it here out of the way. Here we have a little metal element that looks like a little lollipop. Let me get this thing out. And it doesn't really matter which way you set it, this way or if you set it that way. One side is flatter than the other one, but the one that has the smooth edges, I always put it against the plate, and that's the way that it came out of this unit. See how it looked like a little lollipop there, or an ice cream pop, or whatever you want to call it. Make sure you don't lose this little thing. Now let's go ahead and take our pump gears and inspect them. So here's one pump gear. Actually, it looks in fairly good shape. If you're going to see some wear, you're going to see it in the rear here. Now this transmission does not use a pump bushing, and this here, it has to be real nice and smooth. And actually the same body is what is the bushing here. And it has a little notch for lubrication, but that's about it. So here we have the other gear, and I don't see any scratches on it, neither here or here. Sometimes you will find that the torque converter gets destroyed sometimes, and the first thing that gets damaged is the pump, because here, the converter goes in here, and all the trash traveling in here, it scratches the pump on the outside and on the surface area and in the gears as well. So whenever you have a pump like that, I mean, that pump will be junk, and you need to get you another pump body. Now here on our pump cover, there's a couple of valves that live in here. Here we have our main pressure regulator valve, and then we have here one of the valves that this is the one that the spring likes to break, and this spring, it is available separately, or it also comes in a shift kit. A Transgo shift kit comes with this little spring, and whenever that spring is broken, you will have it will cycle in and out of lockup. I mean, you would see at maybe like 60 miles per hour, you will see the needle kind of drop back and forth, maybe like 100 RPM. And as we see here, this little spring, it's in one piece. There's nothing wrong with it, but this is a pattern failure, and you don't want to put this same spring back in here, because if you do, on your rebuild, it's going to break down, the spring is going to break on you, and you're going to have to pull the whole transmission out just to get to the pump to get this little spring in there. Okay, so this is our pump here. Now let's get our valve body and tear that thing apart. Being so that you have a solenoid block here, there's not going to be a lot of valves in the valve body. I mean, everything is controlled by the solenoids. Your shift pressures, your shift feel, everything, it's controlled by the transmission control module. So everything is in-house in the solenoid pack. You only have one valve, which is the solenoid switch valve and the manual valve. And of course, on your pump, you have your pressure regulating and your lockup control valves. All right, well, it's T25s. Let's remove them all. That's a lot of bolts. That's a lot of bolts, man. Okay, that took a couple of minutes with the impact, huh? I know you guys probably tracking time right there on the little time bar. How long did it took? I don't know. I don't know how. I'm not keeping track of time. And these bolts are the same length. They're exactly the same bolts as the pump. So that's why I put them on that bundle over there where the pump bolts are. I'm not worried about mixing them. They're the same. And we do the same thing here. We have two guides. Here's the solenoid pack. On this channel casting, this is our separator plate. Get that out of the way. On this channel casting, there's nothing here. You don't have to worry about things falling off here. But on this side, we have 7 check balls. Let me just drain a little bit of fluid out here, and I'll show you. I don't know if you can probably already see it from over there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 check balls. Let me get this here closer. Okay, I don't know if that's close enough, but here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 check balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, 7 check balls. Don't lose them. Don't lose them because in some kits the check balls are not included. We have a solenoid switch valve here. Sometimes this switch valve likes to wear, or the board actually likes to wear, and if your solenoid switch valve is already worn, either you can get another good used valve body here, this piece, or you can buy the tool and ream it out and put an oversized valve. And inside behind this plate is just accumulators, and I just take them off and put a new accumulator sealing rings on it. And whenever you take them off, just pay attention which way they go. Alright, so there you have it. 45 RFE. Actually, this is a 545 RFE, 2006 or 2007 model. By that year, it's already shifting 5 times. You have 5 gears. The transmission is exactly the same. Nothing changes from a 45 to a 545 except the molded pistons and the computer strategy as to how the shift solenoids are fired and to make a 5th gear. Which they actually put it in between first and second and it's actually called second prime, and then that's where they added the added shift. So there we have it, 45 RFE. Teardown inspections, forward clutches are smoked, overdrive frictions are a little bit burnt. We're gonna have to do some more testing here. This is a carry-out unit, so I don't have the vehicle history here on what codes that it had, but there we have it, 45 RFE. Okay, so before we continue, I have already went to my foot press and removed this snap ring, and we're gonna go ahead and inspect our piston, see if it's ripped or the condition of the piston, and see why those frictions burn up. So for that, I'm gonna lift up a little bit, take the balance piston piston out first. It's a little stuck. Usually it comes out by hand. It's a little stuck here. It should already have come out. Let's see if we're going to find something wrong with this thing. There we go. Alright, this is the balance piston, and we just want to check the the lip, and it feels in good shape all the way around. But the applied piston is this right here, and our underdrive frictions, or our forward frictions, they were burned up. So we want to inspect this piece here, and if we go around the lip all the way around, it feels in good shape, and the inner lip seal, it's also in good shape. Alright, so let's go ahead and disassemble the rest of the drum. And it has another snap ring, and sometimes it'll be kind of difficult to get this thing out because of the way it sits in there. It's a tapered snap ring like the rest of them. It has a taper to it, and the taper goes up and is flat on the opposite end. This snap ring goes here in the piston. There we go. And you also want to, you're going to take an overhaul kit, but we're looking for the problem, and there's a lip seal here, and if we go all the way around, it also feels in good shape. He has 2 O-rings here, and these 2 O-rings, they look flat. So these 2 O-rings are worn out. There's a red one here and a green one down here. Now let's disassemble these 2 piston assemblies. There's another O-ring here, and it also feels flat. And there's another lip seal here, which it feels alright. So more than likely, I mean, what we're looking at right now is just normal wear and tear. And the way we see these O-rings that are flat, they're not protruding out at all, almost nothing. We can safely say that either there's an electrical problem with our speed sensors, but we see a little bit of wear, and we need to figure out, after we put this transmission back together, why those frictions were worn or actually burned up. But there we have it, 45 RFE, 545 RFE, 2005 and up. Has the molded pistons on the rest of the drums. Regular 45 RFEs, they have this assembly here. Alright, so there we have it, 45 RFE, teardown inspection, and this is what it takes.